Yo, it's your man with the plan, Marcelars here to talk about Trials of Cold Steel 4. And I have been really excited for this game. For a lot of those people who haven't been keeping track with my little saga of going through the Trials of Cold Steel series, I started the series probably about 3 or 4 months ago, and I kind of started the series because of 4, honestly, because I was like, oh, it's the end of the saga? Okay, it's 4 games. It sounds really cool to have a 4-part, very detailed RPG to go through. And I kind of went through the first 2 games, and I was, okay, this game's alright. And I missed a lot of stuff. A lot of people pointed it out in my review of the first and second game I did together. I missed out on a lot of things. And then I did the third game, and I really liked the third game. And I think about maybe a month after I beat the third game, the fourth one came out. I was already getting a little burnt out by the time that came out, so it took a little while for me to get through the game and make the video, but here it is. So I want to get right into the nitty-gritty of what I thought about this game, and this is just my honest opinion about the Cold Steel series. It's not the whole Legend of Heroes series. You know, there's other games in the series, but I'm going to judge everything I've played up to this point in this video, and you know, I'm gonna kind of tell you how I really felt about everything overall. But this is going to be non-spoiler for the most part. There's going to be some things I get into, but nothing too bad. And the first thing I kind of want to talk about is the gameplay, which is the easiest thing to talk about. I really like the gameplay for this one. The only concern I have for this version of the gameplay compared to the other ones, I know that all of them are easy if you know what you're doing, honestly. It took me a while in the series to figure out how everything works, but the gameplay for this one specifically is very easy, I can tell. And it didn't actually really make a difference if I was playing on hard or very easy, because it just depended on how much time I wanted to waste in the boss battle, because the type of strategies you could come up with in this iteration of the game, and just all the different, just everything you can do is just ridiculous. Like there's actually ways for me to like completely not have the boss go at all, and like go take a turn at all, and it's turn based. And there's also like other things I can do. I can instantly like status element a boss like with 4 different status elements, and I can just like make sure his turn never comes ever. Like it's ridiculous the strategies that happen in this game, and I feel like they give you so much. That's the problem. They give you so much to do that in the end of the day it feels like that it doesn't feel fair to the game that how much you can do. But the one thing I do have to say as a negative to that is that because you can do so much, they do give certain bosses and certain bosses and certain enemies some cheap tactics. So if you want to play the game through the game normally with no like cheap tactics or like crazy strategy, the game will punish you for that. Honestly, there's been times where the first turn, if you don't do something crazy, they will like confuse your whole party and your party will kill itself. And it's like there's stuff like that, and I do feel like that's a con for the gameplay sometimes. I feel like normal gameplay is not encouraged sometimes. I don't know. This feels like sometimes it's just like you have to go balls to the wall crazy. That's the one like big problem I have with the game. With the gameplay, that's the only problem I could think of. Sometimes to play normally, which I like to do sometimes, is kind of impossible. The next thing I want to talk about is the characters, and there's not really much have changed in these characters. They are all really cool still. I do feel like some of the older the characters were, the more old some of their antics were. But they did do a good job of trying to keep them fresh, and I really liked it. I feel like there was a little too many characters here and there sometimes. It was actually not as bad as people made it out to be, but there's some times where I feel like the story could have benefited a little bit more if they focused on Class 7, even though I really enjoyed having all the different people. I haven't played the other previous games, but just from what I know about them through Cold Steel, I really enjoyed having those characters around. But I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it would have been a little bit better if they just focused both in gameplay and and story wise on on this class 7 and the allies at class 7. I don't know, it's just me. The biggest thing, the biggest chunk of this video is me talking about the plot. So this is going to be lots of pros and cons, and I'm going to start off with the pros. I really, really love how hyped the story was. Like, I felt like all through the story, I felt like, yes, this stuff is happening. This has got to pay off for this. Yes, this is so cool. Yes, I love it. Oh my god, I felt like I was fangirling, even for things I didn't even understand all the way through, because I didn't play the previous Legend of Hero games. I was just fanboying all the way through the whole game. It was just so cool, some of the stuff. And the other thing I really liked about the plot was just like, it was just great to see some of these characters. They always talk about all these characters, and that was like, oh, you should meet this character. She's just like you, or you guys would be good friends. And then they meet. You're like, oh my fucking god, let's go! I've been waiting for this since like the first game. It was so cool. Some of it. It just. I feel like when it came to like the moments that fans have probably been waiting for, this game did not disappoint. Oh my god, it was just I just felt like it was so epic and a lot in scale. It was so epic. I loved it. Okay, but there is a few things that I didn't like about the story, and I'm gonna kind of go through it. Well, this is the biggest thing that irritated me through the story, and it was the pacing of Act 2. The whole game to me was good. It had decent enough pacing, but I feel like Act 2 kind of killed it for me. I felt like we were doing the whole Cold Steel 2 thing within Act 2, and Act 2 is the longest act. And I wasn't the biggest fan of Cold Steel 2. I think to me, it was one of the weakest games to me. I don't know if everybody agrees with me on that, but I went through Act 2, and I was just like, it felt like all the side quests, it felt like the pacing was slow. There was so much going on in the plot, and it felt like it was just slowing down. It was just slowing down for the sake of slowing down, or like to get to feel how the world felt about the curse. And it just felt like, I don't know. It just felt like it was lacking compared to the rest of the game. And when I was going through Act 2, I was like, oh, we're doing this Cold Steel 2 stuff again, where we're gathering all our allies again, individually, one by one. Every single major plot point for Chapter 2 was gathering an ally. And then all the side quests, where most of them had to do with NPCs and, with the world. And the thing is that we already, even though a lot of the quests have been in parts of the world we haven't been before, it's like we kind of already did this before if you played Cold Steel 2. And it just felt kind of like the pacing was kind of ruined. Actually, I remember when I was playing this part, I was like, oh, please don't beat the rest of the game like this. But thankfully it wasn't. But it was I gotta say, it was a big smear on my Cold Steel experience with Chapter 2. It felt a little like, I felt like I was playing the game for the sake of playing the game, because it was a little painful. Act 2 was. Another big thing was the romance stuff, and I don't really have a big problem with having romance and several romantic options. Even Fire Emblem does it. I just felt like in Cold Steel 2, I felt like there was too many to where it felt kind of disingenuous to even Rean as a character himself. Like, I know Rean's supposed to be a ladies' man, right? But you can't have every girl that has a pulse in the whole world like Rean at the same time. I know what they were trying to do, but it makes sense. Class 7, the original Class 7 makes sense, and the princess makes sense, and at least never really made sense to me specifically, because I felt like that she was always, even though it was, granted, she was always like that through the series. She was not like, didn't just fall in love with him just out of nowhere. But I felt like when it came to the new Class 7, other than Musse, it just felt like they were like, hey, let's have every girl in his Altina have Juna, and Musse makes sense. Let's have Duvalie, like every girl in this series is like Rean, and it was just like, come on now. It just got to the point where it's like, okay, they just trying, they're just messing with me now. I hated that, honestly, because if they just did the characters that made sense, like, you know, the original Class 7, the teacher, you know, Emma, Alisa, Laura, Musse, like if they made some of the characters not available, it makes sense to me. But some of them were just like, oh my god, these characters barely even interact like this in the series at all. But it's just me. I felt like it was a little disingenuous. Or not disingenuous, maybe that's not the right word, but it didn't feel right. That's all I'm trying to say. And I gotta say, sometimes the curse was a little BS. And it was only a little BS because they didn't really explain it all the way through too well. And I felt like they could have used Chapter 2 to do that, because Chapter 2 I felt like was a little bit of empty space. They could have used Chapter 2 to like explain the curse and how it works a little bit well, because I'm like, I understand what the curse is supposed to be. It's supposed to be an emotional thing, right? So sometimes it'll be like, okay, it's a power too. Okay, on top of it, it's a thing that can transform you. It's also something that can help heal you, like make you walk again. It also can make your wife form better in bed. It's like, okay, like how does the curse really work? I wish they kind of like went into real detail, because they do allude to it sometimes, but they don't directly ever say that the curse does this and this, and it could also extend to this. So maybe I missed something in the story, but I just felt like it was emotional. It was always emotional, and then they made it in a power. And then they made it do a lot more. Like, oh, it could transform a horse into a demon. It's like, okay, why does that happen? And it felt like the curse sometimes, I rolled my eyes sometimes, because I felt like sometimes the curse was just like, hey, you know that one thing that, there's 100 things that can go wrong. I'm going to make sure all 100 things go wrong. It's like, okay, come on now. It's just ridiculous. That's pretty much my most problems with the main plot, but I'm kind of going to go to my problems with the overall series plot in general now, that since I kind of went through the main plot of Cold Steel's problems, and this kind of extends to the whole overall plot, this thing's I'm about to say. A lot like Act 2 of this game, I felt like a lot of times in Cold Steel, there is a lot of dead air sometimes, like, oh, let's explore the world and talk about the world for about 40 hours of the 100 hours we're going to be playing this game. I'm like, oh my god, that's a long time to be like exploring the world before we get back to the plot. And there's always a chapter like that in every game where it's just like, not the first one, because the first one obviously is different, but there's always a section where you're just like, let's explore everything, let's take our time and just go through everything. And that could be my fault, especially since I go through all the side quests, which they make feel mandatory to me. And I just feel like sometimes in Cold Steel that the time in Cold Steel could be cut down a little bit more in the plot sometimes. I don't feel like we should. I appreciate the info sometimes, but I feel like even the info could be given to us a little bit more quicker in a more balanced way. Because sometimes I'm sitting in there, I'm like, okay, we can't. Are we really talking about soup for 30 minutes in a cutscene? It just, in Cold Steel, they do that a lot. I don't know. It's not a big problem, but it's just like, it gets on my nerves. It's one of the biggest turnoffs to me in Cold Steel, from my experience. I feel like they spend a long time on some things. Another thing about Cold Steel, I do feel like they do a lot of ass pulls. Like, I feel like sometimes they're like there's a 1 in a million chance, and then another million chance of this happening, and a millionth chance of you surviving. Like, there's like a billionth of a chance of happening, and like everything will hit right. No, it just, there'd be no extra reason, explanation, or like extra factor. It just feels like sometimes things will just work out. Oh, we don't have to kill this person because he's really the president of this country, and you're like, that's very convenient. That's too convenient. And it's like, also, you almost got shot, but it missed you by an inch because you dunked down and picked up a quarter, and the quarter helped cure your poison. And it's just like, dude, you can't. This is too much. This is too convenient sometimes. Sometimes in Cold Steel it is. And the the one thing that was also weird overall in Cold Steel, sometimes the characters do have weird chemistry sometimes, and especially with Rean, it feels like it's nothing wrong with Rean being the main character and having everybody like him. Sometimes I feel like the characters even comment how stupid some of the stuff they say is, but for some reason they still praise it anyway. That's how I feel about sometimes in Cold Steel, like they'd be like, "Oh, you're my friend, so I'm gonna let you shoot me." You're like, "This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I'm not gonna shoot you now. That's so stupid." And I'll be like, "Okay." In Cold Steel, sometimes they do that stuff, and it's just like, "Come on, this is so stupid. Just shoot him. You're gonna shoot him before he said that stupid stuff." I don't know. I feel like sometimes it has anime logic in it sometimes, and not video game logic. There's a difference in video game and anime logic. It just feels like, it's so convenient. It's too convenient sometimes. But yeah, other than those few things, Cold Steel overall, though, in a positive way, I feel like it has so many small details. It has so many details and so many things that build up the world and build up the characters' lore, and it just make the characters feel like they live in a living, breathing world. And it reminds me of our world enough to where I feel familiarity with it, but it's also so different to where I'm fascinated. Like Panzer Soldaten, so like that's a cool idea. Like it's just a Gundam, really, but something about the way they incorporate them is so cool. Like oh, this is like our new advanced weaponry that's like takes over tanks, and we got magic in the world too with this technology, and we got this modern world, and we got Ouroboros, and then we're going to go meta with some of the stuff that we're bringing in. And it's just so, I love that part of it, though. I think it's the part of Cold Steel that I really like. It's just how detail oriented the systems and the story are. Even though I think sometimes the execution of some of the stuff could be a little bit better emotionally, but I think technically the stuff is great. Oh my god, I love it. Okay, but to go to like some of the more smaller things that I've noticed, the voice acting for this game, I almost teared up a few times listening to voice acting in this game. I do gotta say, I could tell this game has been affected by the big C, the virus, because I could tell that some of the minor characters, a lot of them, at least half the minor characters had different voice actors changed, or they used voice actors that they already have. And you can hear it. Some of the characters didn't have voices beforehand, but some of the characters you'd be like, okay, is that Usis playing 3 different characters? And it probably is. There's a lot of characters in this game, but you could tell that some characters don't have their previous voice actors. And the major characters I could tell that didn't have their voice actors from before was Laura and Osborne. I don't know about Osborne, but I'm pretty sure he sounds different too. Osborne sounded like he was a little bit more groggly than he was previously, and Laura sounded a little bit more tomboyish. So it's like I could tell that they changed those 2 voice actors, but it was kind of hard to tell who changed and who didn't, because I think also because of the virus, maybe the direction was a little different, because some of the characters I felt like had the same voice actor, but they were doing a different voice for them. And it was a little weird for some of them. Like, I think one of the big ones was Angie. Angie, I think, had the same voice actor. I might not be right about that, but she sounded so different. I'm like, oh my god, Angie sounded totally different. But yeah, I think overall the voice acting was really good. The same voice acting they had before, but actually, I think in some ways it was a little bit better. The music. The music. I'm so glad I talked about this last. The music was so good. Like, I still think some of the ending songs of the first game were better. Like, some of the final boss and some of the other songs in the first game were a little bit better. But I gotta say, when it comes to overall soundtrack, I think this game had a better soundtrack. I do think it had a little bit too much synth in there from me, but I know that's Falcom's signature of having like the like a crazy electric synth guitar in there. But I really liked most of what I heard. like I said, there was 1 or 2 songs I was like, it was a little on its own, if without the voice acting and the scenes and stuff, I think it would have been a little But yeah, I think for the most part the music was good. But yeah, I've been really pleased with Cold Steel 4. This is a very big series, a very big game. I might play Zero next. I might not go all the way back to Sky. It's just a lot of games, and it's just a lot of time that I'm slowly over time not having. And it's just like I don't know. I like the series sometimes, but I think it's a little long. It's like a longer Kingdom Hearts. That's what it reminds me of. Like if I have to put it down in my own words, this game's like a longer Kingdom Hearts in a lot of ways, and it's like a well-written, better Kingdom Hearts. But like even the way some of the story beats go and how the story works out, the conveniences and how the characters act, it does remind me of Kingdom Hearts a lot. We kind of talked about that with me and my friends, but I'm really impressed with this game. I know there's one more full turn-based game left, and I heard a short, so I'll play that one. And then I heard the next one's kind of like the Final Fantasy type of game where it's like, active time battle. I don't know if it's going to be action active time battle, but I know it's active time battle. And I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with that. I think the Japanese version of that's coming out this year, and we should be getting the Japanese version of the prologue for Cold Steel 4 probably soon too. So I'm really excited. I might talk about those, but for now, this is my end of Cold Steel 4 and the Cold Steel series in general, and I really enjoyed the ride. I'm really happy with what I've got. Don't take anything I said negatively in this video. Don't take it personally. I just it's something things I had to say now before I ended the series off. And I've been really happy with what I've played so far. So please leave me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you don't like anything I just said. Or please hit the subscribe button, that little bell icon to join the rebellion, because I'm only best new friends. And I'll see you guys next video in our stream. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.